Bienvenidos, Fright fans. Welcome to the horror show. I'm Jaime and Fuego.
I'm Marcia Parker.
And we are here to do a little bit of a mini review, I guess, about this alleged return to form 9th season of The Walking Dead. They brought in a new showrunner. They said that they were going to be going back to basics, less human conflict, more zombie involvement and stuff, but still trying to parallel the comics to some degree because there is a little bit of a time jump that goes down, at least initially, but then after the most recent episode, which was the final Rick Grimes episode, saying adios to Mr. Lincoln, unfortunately, then they are doing the real time jump like we saw in the comics, as opposed to going forward, a year or so, like we start this season with. So I guess we're going to give overall impressions and thoughts about the season so far, the first 5 episodes, and then talk about the final Grimy, and as well as maybe a few of the characters that have it's not super spoilers. They had said that we're going to see some old faces from the show show up for that send-off for the guy who has led the proceedings the entire time. He's gone by many names, like the Rick-tator. Like, what else? Are there any other nicknames that come to mind for you over the years for him?
Not really. Just Rick.
Yeah.
Oh, Rick.
Ricky Grimes.
Mr. Grimes.
Yeah. So, you've read much further into the comics than me. I have read just through A New Beginning, which I think is what they called at least one of the first 5 episodes. But so Negan's been locked in the cage, and a little bit of time has gone by because Maggie has had her son. She's had Herschel, and all of the communities are kind of trying to work together, but there are still there's some animosity and hostility just lingering below the surface, between especially at the Saviors' headquarters, because and they're working with the Saviors. The Hilltop, the Kingdom. What do they call them? The Seaport Village Girls, or whatever the hell they are, and who are not from the comics. They're a part of it now too.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, everything seems pretty well developed and copacetic, but there's still, lingering problems from the end of All Out War, right?
Well, because at the end of season 8, they didn't actually resolve anything.
Well, they didn't in the comics either, really. I mean, it was pretty close to it.
I mean, yeah, they just
decide
in the
not
comics,
to kill Negan.
Yeah, they don't kill Negan, and the time jumps, and then everything's kind of copacetic, and then you just kind of, they built this whole new world, and you move forward. It's just like, okay, enough of this, let's move on. But apparently they couldn't do that in The Walking Dead, and they had to linger on about, Maggie needs redemption, and I don't know, like, I was super bored for the first 5 episodes.
Even the 5th one.
Or is it the 5th one where Rick leaves?
5th one's the last one for Rick.
Oh, I thought there were 6. Okay,
6 is the one that, as of this filming, 6 airs tonight, and 6 is the official time jump.
Oh, is that how they're doing it? Okay.
Yeah. And
okay.
What's her name? The daughter replacing
Judith.
Yeah, Judith replacing Carl, like in the comics, because since they killed off Carl's character, and she's kind of like a grown-up Judith is taking the place, and she's got the hat and everything, and she said you get a little taste of it at the
young though. I mean,
very young,
still like 7 or 8, with wielding a 6-shooter and.
There's a little bit of disbelief there.
I don't know. Okay, so I'll take it back. The first 4 episodes were really boring. Nothing happens.
Well, and there's there's lots of underhanded, like, Maggie really wants to go and kill Negan in the cage. She's mad that they didn't give Glenn his proper revenge, and didn't even at the end of season 8. She tells why can't I think of Rita?
Jesus.
Well, she tells Jesus, and she tells Rita's, why the hell is his name?
Daryl.
Daryl, yeah. Why is his name?
There was a group of them. It was Daryl. It was the other little girl. There was
Rosita? Was she
maybe
part of it?
Rosita might have been there.
Anyway, she basically says that eventually they're going to go after Michonne and Rick, and
which they don't even.
No, they didn't even. They didn't. They kind of cut out that subplot. I
they
felt
had to. Yeah. They had to go back because then Rick's because Lincoln was like, I'm gonna get leave, and I think Maggie's leaving too. So
they said that this was like her last episode for a while.
Yeah.
So she's not even a part of the time jump aspect that's going down. I mean, they had a couple interesting set pieces. Like I like the set piece where Daryl and Rick fell into the zombie pit. I thought that was interestingly shot, and that I can tell they're trying to go for a little bit more zombie carnage, to replace the fact that season 8 was pretty much just like a person-on-person shoot-'em-up trying to be like an 80s, 90s action movie, but the action was not particularly compelling.
Mm-hmm.
The episodes that were good in season 8 were like the death of Carl and a few
No, it was horrible.
Really? You didn't like it? I thought it was sad. Yeah, I thought it was pretty sad.
We're jumping around, but yeah, I thought the death of Carl was done so... It was like there was no justice to Carl. I thought that it was really lackluster and just kind of like I thought it was a big middle finger to Carl's the actor really, because there was no real heart. They tried to put heart into it, but it really just felt like, oh, he got bit, now he's dead, see ya.
Yeah, I like the leather aspect though. I thought that was kind of interesting.
It just makes me so mad because I think they could have handled it way better if they would have just. If they're like, okay, so Carl is... Because I don't think they should have killed off Carl. They should
he plays,
never
from what I've read, he plays a big part in the Whisper War or whatever
right.
that's coming up.
And if they would have played it right, they could have just ended it with the time jump there, or just, like, keep them on long enough to do the time jump and end the season and do the time jump, and you could have had a different actor play Carl because he would have been way older, and if they would just followed that timeline... Because they've added so much stuff to the show that nobody cares about. They don't care about the trash people. They don't care about the female tribe. They don't care about the fighting between the saviors and the king and Alexandra and Daryl. Like the whole time, like this last season, Daryl is just sitting there crying and just like moping, like I don't want to play with them, they killed my friends. And the same thing with Maggie, and it's like
it is nice to see Jeffrey Dean Morgan still on there though, and his presence in the few scenes we get from him locked up and stuff.
Yeah,
I thought those were interestingly done, and him kind of hiding in the shadows with the beard and everything.
Yeah, but the whole thing with Maggie was bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm going to sorry about that. But yeah,
no. Call it like you saw it, because that
it was ridiculous. They keep what makes me so mad about this show.
Disservice with that?
Yes, because what they keep doing with this show is they did it with Rick too. Is that they would build him up and he's supposed to be this giant villain. The one thing I love about the Negan is that he's true to himself all the time, and they made him weak
and grovel and just want to be dead and everything.
It would have been awesome if it was like him playing a trick on Maggie and then like escapes, but that's not what
I was thinking initially. It was going to be total head games and they were going to do something different than in the comic books. But in the comics, when he's in the cage, he's all smiling and he's talking with Carl, and they're having their little palaver. They have that weird symbiotic, almost like father-son kind of dynamic going on, which is really... It's a little strange, but he's like, they did touch on that at the end of season 8, where he's like, if I ever had a kid, Rick, I would have wanted him badass just like your son, so on. I thought that was some good acting by Jeffrey Dean. But
the problem we're seeing here is that they keep building up these different avenues of like, oh, this could be cool, but then they cut themselves off the foot, and it's like, no, just kidding, we're not going to do that. And it's like, okay, if you're going to go with the comic books, then go with the comic books. If you're not, then at least make it interesting. And every episode should be interesting. And they're not. They're trying to draw everything out so it can go a full, 2 half seasons. And there's just not enough material to do that. I think they need to be more creative with the story if they want to draw it out for so long. Or reduce the episodes.
They said they were going to make it leaner and meaner for this new season. And so far,
I'm not
maybe we're gonna get it, once this time jump hits. But for the first 5 episodes, you're definitely right about that. Although, from an emotional standpoint, if we're gonna get to the final Rick episode,
that was the best episode that I've seen since Glenn died. I'll say
it really hit me in the feels, I must say. So yeah, we knew that they had announced a couple months before the season even started that John Bernthal was going to reprising the role. It was going to be reprising the role of Shane. We heard that Herschel was going to come back, a few other mystery people. And I have to say, Rick finds himself in this predicament. Did you at least find that interesting? We're not going to spoil it or anything. He gets injured, and it looks like pretty dire straits for him. And, you know, the entire episode after his injury is him really... He's falling in and out of consciousness and having these dreamlike states. That scene with him and Shane got me in the feels, is really the best way that I can put it.
I thought they did a really good job.
Their little discussion that they were having, and it harkens back to the very first episode of the entire show, which I thought was good. Did it make you happy to see all Shane O'Mac back on there?
It did. And I liked it because it kind of just... It gave them the ability to talk to somebody like you would if like you haven't seen in years, because you had this whole feud and there's a couple zingers, but at the same time it's like they had such a huge and strong relationship for so many years that they were able to talk to each other as looking back, and it was super interesting on how they put that together. And when if you're talking about like when he does get injured, I mean that whole thing, I mean it's his fault, like when him and Daryl fall into the hole of convenience, as I call it, because it was definitely a hole
zombie pit of convenience.
It's a hole of convenience, and then the whole when he got injured, it was kind of an injury of convenience too, because of the time. Anybody else would have got ripped to pieces in that situation. And he doesn't.
He's resourceful Rick though, with the
But I liked the way they did have him kind of go through that timeline as people say they experience on their way out, and it kind of reminded me of when Tyrese died, and when they revisited,
good pull,
right?
Yeah.
And then when they revisited some old characters, and it was very, very touching and symbolic and really moving. I mean, that's still my number one favorite death of how they let somebody go, but yeah, it looked like he was gonna be another Noah for 1 second, and then it kind of went into the Tyrese, and you kind of they did Andrew Lincoln justice. They did Rick justice, and that made me feel happy about it, because I wasn't sure how they're gonna handle it. I hated Carl's death, so. Like I said before, I don't think
it was not one of the better deaths, but I was just sad after having spent so much time with the character, and
I just felt like they could have gone a different way, and I think maybe that's why I'm so angry about it. Because I don't know what to expect going forward, to be honest.
Who does?
I did like the little teaser at the end of this episode with Judith, and I thought that was interesting, and I'll keep watching.
Yeah.
I'll keep watching.
It was the fact that everybody wouldn't shut up about this Rick episode, and a little bait and switch kind of thing that they pull in without spoiling too much. But to jump off what you said about the Shane conversation, and like the awareness of things that happened after his death, some of the little jabs about, you know, does she have my nose and ears and those different things, and, you know, and also where he was congratulating him on being enough of a badass to do some of the things that he's done. He's like, you manned up, you know, I didn't think you had it in you, and stuff like that. Those little bits I found really compelling, so that was an interesting scene. And then besides Herschel, there's another face or two, without spoiling stuff, that pops up. But the Herschel one just made me sad, honestly, especially since that actor passed away shortly after filming that scene. So it just added so much more heft and impact. And, you know, they're talking about Maggie, and he talked about Beth, and he talked about Glenn, and just so much. And it was really one of those episodes that shows that that this program still can be powerful. Unfortunately, it's powerful when it relies on its history as opposed to new things that it's doing, really, you know, because we're all invested. We've watched all of these years and years and years of this program. So
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really want them to do more creative things. I want them to kind of go back to the roots. And I think when we had... Like, when I keep going back to season 1, and, like, there was only 6 episodes, and...
Lean and mean.
Right, and then they were able to hit all the points without having to come up with stuff to make it long and drawn out, and like, do episodes on side characters that nobody cares about, and focusing on a whole storyline that means nothing to the overall arcing story, and it contributes nothing. It's just a waste of time. And I feel like we've been really suffering from it, like more so since Glenn left. And
especially in, seasons
I feel like
7 and 8,
they pulled back hard because of what happened. Like, I feel like they felt a really big backlash because of what happened with the Glenn episode, which makes me so sad because that's one of my favorite episodes because they didn't hold back.
They decided to tone down the violence and the grisly nature of the show in a lot of ways. Even if they were like running around there just all shooting each other up and whatnot, I did feel like, since people accuse them of going too far with the Glenn episode, that they did kind of take their foot off the gas pedal
way back. And it's so sad because
they synthesized the show a little bit.
Yeah, and it really took a lot of the potential away from what made the show so great and so watchable, and so like we were so excited week to week to do recaps. We were doing weekly recaps of the show. To now we're like we're doing like mid-season reviews.
Yeah.
Because it's just lost so much momentum because they're not having the freedom to do what they were doing, and that's sad. Like, you know, like make this show for the people who want to watch this show. Forget all those people who just jumped in to see what happened to Glenn because they obviously don't know anything about the series or the comic books or care. Like I want the raw. I want the like when the very first episode for season 1 when it was almost shot to the comic book and it was, you know,
shooting that zombie girl in the head.
Right, like everybody knew at that moment that they don't care.
Means business.
They're gonna do it. They're gonna give the fans what they want to see, and then all of a sudden they just fill it with this wishy-washy stuff that nobody cares about. They toned down Michonne so much you can't even recognize her anymore.
I did like the beginning of the episode though, where she's waking up and just going out and killing because she still has the urge to do it, you know, and then they intersperse that with her playing with little baby Judith and stuff, and then, you know, night comes and she's out and she's just slicing and dicing, and that's her true nature, and that's what she's drawn to do. Any scene with Negan in these first few episodes, with characters coming to talk to him, I thought all of those were done very well, but pretty much everything else, you're right, it's just not really...
Nobody cares.
Let's build the bridge. Okay. Build a bridge.
We're building a bridge, but I'll say this:
the hostilities between the saviors and everything, and you know, I'm still Negan or whatever the thing that the person wrote.
And it's so ridiculous because, and I know they're not jumping all the way forward, but you know,
they gave like a couple baby jumps before the big jump, which they didn't do.
And when you jump all the way forward, there's no like this animosity about the saviors. They're all different, you know, cities and they're all working together and it's blooming and they're you know, there's this whole thing happening. So I am excited for the Whisperer's Roar.
Which it's interesting the way they're giving, for those unfamiliar with the comics, they're making you think something else is going on. They're saying the zombies are evolving.
They are evolving.
They're totally
they're evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
That's what's happening.
Exactly.
The Whisperer's War.
What are Whisperers?
I'm so excited for it, but with Carl and Rick no longer in the picture, I mean, I don't know how they're going to do it. And because the whole reason the Whisperer War really happens and continues to happen is because of Carl and Negan. So, I don't know.
And those are the parts I haven't read. I've read up to the up through the comics of where they end the, you know, a new world or whatever the heck it's called. Basically, where the two guys ride past their perimeter and they encounter these new zombies, so to speak. And you know, that's as far as I am in the comics, because I try to read the comics after they've gone through those storylines in the show, and then I compare and contrast and stuff, and just to see how drastically, and they're gonna have to go drastically different, here, at least from what I've seen. But
yeah, it's good. Well, I mean, they have no choice now because there's no more Rick or Carl, in which it just.
And that's one thing that we have to touch upon, because you heard about the movie announcement, right?
Right.
Yeah. So we're not going to say like the fate of Rick, but they're apparently planning 3 Andrew Lincoln starring Walking Dead films for AMC. They haven't said if it's going to be TV movies or if it's going to be in theaters or whatever. They haven't said if this is going to take place, you know, between the time jumps or like, you know, how this is all going to factor in. But a lot of people felt like that was kind of a cop-out when they billed this as the final Walking Dead with Andrew Lincoln and with Rick Grimes. And then they're like, oh, we're going to make a couple movies with his character, though. And you're just like, what? So I don't know. Do you think they deceived people a little bit?
Of course they did. And I had a feeling when they're doing all these promotions about the last episode with Rick Grimes and they're building it up that there was going to be some sort of twist.
Maybe a catch.
Yeah, because that's what they, that's what they do. And sometimes they do it well and sometimes they don't. And I'll let you guys be the decider factor. And
it allows him to go off and do more projects and still have his ties with the franchise that made him a household name. So as opposed to filming as much, he just goes and, he'll do a movie here or there, couple, like once a year. And he's still in the universe. And then we're going to talk about it more. Well, you've seen us talk about it more on the Horror Show News already, myself and Cecil. But yeah, I felt like it was a little bit of a bait and switch, and everybody was pissed off on Twitter about it when they're like, wait, he's going to have more stories? What's going on?
Yeah. So, I mean, the way the show runs, it doesn't surprise me, and nobody else should be surprised. That's why I was so surprised when they actually killed Glenn, because I was like, oh, they actually had the balls to do it. So it doesn't surprise. And when they killed Carl, I didn't want to believe they were actually going to kill him. I was hoping that they would keep that open, but they like straight up told a big middle finger to that actor.
Yeah, well, he's turning 18 and he was up for renegotiating his contract and getting a lot more money. And people think that having this little no-name Judith girl like kind of playing the Carl role, maybe going and having a relationship with Negan, who the hell knows? But yeah, there's speculation that it was a financial trimming.
But even if so, like, there's a way around it. There's always a way around it.
There is always a way.
And they chose not to, and they think they chose wrong, but we'll see how they do it. I just hope, because it's going to have to be so different from what the comic books in order to make the story work.
Yeah, because your leads are like Daryl and Carol, and they're like Daryl not in the comics.
No.
Yeah, and Carol died in the prison, in the comic book. So
it's weird that the only two characters that were there from the beginning.
And they're going to be the leads. They're re-signing deals right now and stuff, and they're going to be the mainstays.
Well, yeah, they have Michonne.
Yeah, they still have Michonne. They still have, I guess, oh goodness, bullet making dude. Eugene, yeah, they still have Eugene. They still have Rosita. They still presumably are gonna have Gabriel. They'll still have Jesus. I don't know.
Which they underplay Jesus so much. It's really.
But he's got the bun going on now, like in
the
comics.
He's got the bun. It'll be interesting. I mean, I don't know if there's much more to say. I mean,
there really isn't. I'm just curious if the next half of the season or the rest of the way is gonna be what they promised at the onset of the season.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
But the zombie kills were pretty good in the 5th episode. I was appreciative of the zombie kills and the hordes, and I am feeling more zombies are coming back into play. Are they a prevalent role? Not so much.
Yeah, I mean, at least they're trying to lead hordes around, and they felt like they were at least more of a plot point than they were in the all-out war stuff, I mean, except for when they were, dipping their weapons in the zombie blood, and that's straight from the comics anyway. So
we'll see what happens. If you guys let us know if you're going to continue to watch. I know I'm going to continue to watch it because they've got me wrapped around their fingers, and I just got to see how they play out at this point.
Yeah, I took a little bit of time off. This is like a on and off long-term romantic relationship for me with The Walking Dead. Mm-hmm. It's like the first season was hot and heavy and passionate and but short-lived, and then you're like, oh, I'm losing interest. So you take a few years apart, you go back, and it's like better than ever. You get reacquainted after a few years. 3, 4, 5, most of the 6 were awesome. Mm-hmm. But then you start to be like, oh, this is kind of floundering again. What the hell's going on? I took a little more time off with season 8. I come back, finish season 8, start 9, and I'm like, even though I still care, it's not the same, and it's never gonna be the same. We can still be friends, though, Walking Dead.
Yeah, we can be friends. Long distance
friends.
Yeah,
exactly.
We can have brunch once a month, okay?
Yeah, every now and then. I'm not deleting you on social media, but I guess that's as good a point as any for us to cut things off here. I have been Jaime Fuego.
I'm Marcia Parker.
And until next time, Walking Deadites, remember,
stay
scared.